Hello and welcome to the Dyson Leadership Podcast. And for this episode and next week's episode, it's going to be a little different. So I'm located in Western North Carolina in the foothills. So this I'm recording after the devastation of Hurricane Helene that came through up from the Gulf into Western North Carolina. And for me, I was without power and internet like most of our area for a couple days. And that disrupted things because that happened over the weekend. And I normally work with my guest over the weekend. I've had to reschedule numerous podcast interviews. I wasn't able to upload an episode last week to the airing of this episode and was trying to figure out what to do in this instance because it definitely disrupted my production of podcast episodes. So I decided for this week and next week, these are going to be solo episodes. You're going to have me coming on to talk about a concept with you directly, and it's not going to be the usual podcast guest back and forth like normal. One thing that I'm very passionate about, and it's what I want to talk and share with you here on this podcast, is the topic of self-leadership. Now, for self-leadership, you have to be able to lead yourself before you lead others. The first person you will ever lead is yourself. Your actions, your decisions, what you do, that is you leading yourself. So I have to ask you, what do you do to lead yourself, and how do you lead yourself? You may have answers to those questions, or you may not. And so I want to talk about, first and foremost, one of the foundational things of self-leadership that ultimately then carries over into other aspects of leadership, and that is your core values. Now, you may have gone through some type of leadership training exercise in the past. You may know your core values. You may be able to call them out and say, these 3, 4, 5 things are my core values. One thing that I do a lot in training, development, workshops, working with people is a values exercise. This is where you take a list of words on a piece of paper. I've seen some organizations where they'll use almost like playing card size cards. They have these different words. You have to arrange or pick the words that most resonate with you, things that are maybe like honesty, truthfulness, resilience, perseverance. They're going to be some type of attributes, characteristics that you embody, and those are your core values. The reason that is important, your core values will determine your actions, what you do, which ultimately leads to your character. Your values contribute and determine the character and what other people will see. So when people look at you and say they are a person of great moral character, they're a person of very strong character, they're a very trustworthy individual, they are commenting about the things that they see that resonate out of your core values. So how do we go about figuring out your core values? I talked about doing a values exercise. That is not unique to me. That is not unique to any leadership coach or other organization that you might work with. That is something that you can do on your own or with the help of someone like me. And if you would like to go through that with a leadership coach, by all means, reach out to me. We will schedule something and make that happen. But here's something you can do on your own. If you don't want to take the time to do that or spend the money to work with a coach or an organization, Google a values exercise. Find a document, a list of these words, and take time to narrow those down. Find maybe 2 or 3 or 4 of those words on those lists that you're able to find, and those that resonate most with you, those that connect you, say, these are important to me. Mark them, circle them, put them in a Word document. If you're an electronic person like me, find some way to document those words. What you might even want to do, because a lot of people struggle to get down to only a few words, you might want to start and say, I'm going to narrow it down to 10 that are important to me. And then I'm going to eliminate the least couple important to me and keep doing that type of thing so that you narrow the list more and more. What you want to do is get down to those few words that are the most key. So for me, I will give you one of my examples. This is one of my top 2 or 3 anytime I've ever done this exercise is truthfulness. I am the type of person that when I jump on this podcast or I do training and I work with people, I want to be completely open and honest with you. I want to be sharing truth, sharing value, sharing things that build you up, and not something that's going to mislead you or manipulate you in any way. I'm the type of person, as I'm running my business, Dyson Leadership, if somebody approaches me for services, even if there's something I offer, but I feel like there's another leadership coach or another person that can serve the need better, I will refer them out to the other group than take the money for myself. Because I'm not out just to make a profit, just for the sake of making a profit. I want people to get the value that they need. And that for me is important. It's also something when I train, I coach, I work with people on the podcast here, I want what I share to be the truth. I'm not going to lie to you just to make a good podcast episode. I'm not going to lie to somebody that I'm coaching just to make them feel good about something. I want to be truthful, honest, and open with them and challenge them to be better out of the perspective of truth. That's something for me, that truthfulness, that key value, that core value for me comes from my faith. It comes from what I've been taught, how I've grown up, and my faith and my beliefs as a Christian. That for me is one of my strongest values. And I will tell people, I will not lie to you. I will do my very best to be open, honest, and truthful to you no matter what. And one of my pet peeves as a result is when I know people are not being truthful with me. It kind of gets on my nerves, but that's one of those things. Not everybody holds that as a core value. So as I'm explaining that, talking about it, you may already be thinking of something that you know when it's the negative, it's a pet peeve, but when it's you, you will not defer or turn away from this certain characteristic or aspect. That could be one of your core values. So when you're looking at personal development and leadership, what are your core values? If you don't know, or you've never gone through that exercise, reach out to me as a coach. Reach out to somebody else as a leadership coach. Find somebody that'll work with you, or go and do the exercise on your own and determine your core values. That is the first thing you need to do, because that will impact your character. That'll impact so many other things if you know your core values. The next thing I want you to do from there in self-leadership, looking at the values, is I want you to do a self-assessment. This is not something you go and you have to Google or find. You don't have to find a leadership coach to do it. You can take just a simple notebook, a piece of paper, something, and start to write down and note what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses. Figure out what those are. Maybe you need to go and ask someone else for feedback. Something I've done in the past is reach out to other people and say, hey, what am I good at? What could I do better? What are things that you see as my strongest attributes, or what are things that you see that I'm not that great in on a regular basis? It's hard to get the truth. It's hard to get that kind of feedback. We don't always want that kind of harsh feedback, but there's so much value in getting that feedback from others of what they see. But then you can also do the self-assessment for yourself. For me, I, for the longest time, did not see myself as good at communication. I saw myself as an average at best communicator, something that I just didn't value or didn't see myself as being that great in. But what happened is I started having other people tell me that, Nick, you're a great communicator. Nick, you are great at resonating with people. Nick, you are just so easy to talk to. And I started getting all of this feedback. And for me, I just laughed it off. That's not true. I'm just an average guy. I'm not good at communication. And I got to realizing there was an element of truth to that, where I am able to hold conversations with people. I am able to sit in front of a camera or a microphone like this and share value and try to communicate out to a broader audience. It's something I don't get stressed out by public speaking, unlike most people. I used to, but I don't now because I do it so often. So for me, communication is something I see as a strength. Now, one of my weaknesses, and I will tie it in, a weakness within communication is small talk skills. I'll be honest, that's something I'm not always the best at. That, how are you doing? How's your family? How's the weather? How's, life going? And all of those small talk type things to warm up and get a conversation going. I'm not always the best at that. Most of the time, I'm just a walk up and immediate. So, what do you do for work? So, what can I do to help in your organization? Hey, we need to talk about this. And it's just immediately straight to business. You may be that kind of person too. I'm just a very direct person when it comes to those conversations. But for me, that's an area of weakness where I'm trying to get better at that caring for people, valuing their experience and what's going on with them, to engage with them and care about what they've got going on. Whereas in general communication, resonating with people, connecting with people, talking in front of a camera or microphone, engaging with people, that to me, that comes naturally. So first, determine your core values. Second, do the self-assessment of your strengths and your weaknesses. The last thing that I want you to do in regards to self-leadership and for this kind of values and figuring out yourself is to develop a personal mission and vision plan. I could do an entire talk just about this. And I may do one on my YouTube channel at some point in the future, but think about it from a business term. I'm a business instructor. I teach this concept as well as I've done this concept in my business for Dyson Leadership and others, but a mission and a vision statement. Mission statement is, what are you intending to achieve or do? What are the people that you are there to serve? What product or service are you offering? That's in a business concept. So as a personal mission statement, what is your personal mission? What do you want to achieve? What do you want to do? Why do you feel like you are here on earth to succeed, to grow in, to be excellent at? Why are you here? You may not know the answer to that question. And so determine, what do you want to pursue? You may say, I want to go into this specific career and rise through the corporate ladder. I want to go and obtain this certain degree and then start my own business doing this type of work. You may have something that is your personal mission. Write it down as a personal mission statement, but make sure it is based out of your strengths and make sure it is based out of your core values. That will make it more real for you. And that is what's going to keep it more serious as your personal mission, is you want to keep it tied to your values and what you believe. Now, your vision statement for a business, a vision statement is kind of that visionary outlook, that forward projecting mindset. So for Dyson Leadership, I'm not going to read the exact vision statement that I have written down. I'm going to give you just off the top of my head what I kind of see as the vision and what I believe for Dyson Leadership and the Dyson Leadership podcast. I see this as a tool and a resource for others to grow and develop themselves. So my vision is, I want Dyson Leadership to serve and to reach others, to help them grow and reach their potential that they can have in their life and career. That's a vision. It's not overly specific. It's not something that I can just narrow down or put in a box. It's not even to a specific people group or demographic. It is something that is just very broad. That is a visionary thing. I want to see people be able to reach their full potential. So you have your mission. What goals do you want to achieve? What do you want to proceed forward? What do you want to do? And then your vision statement. What do you see your life becoming? A statement, it's somewhat morbid, but I've always heard it said in different settings, is people will summarize your life in a sentence or roughly a sentence. What do you want them to say? What do you want people to say at the end of your life that you did or you believed or that you pursued? What kind of life do you want to live that people will reflect on later on? That's your vision statement. Determine what that is and then live it. That's my challenge for you in this episode. Figure out your core values. That will determine your character. Let your strengths and your weaknesses come out. Work on the weaknesses. Work on the strengths. Keep improving them. Keep growing. But then have that personal mission and vision. Know what you're wanting to pursue and do. That is some of the core elements of self-leadership. If you do these things, that is helping you get aligned as a leader to be able to then go and lead others. You have to first lead yourself to lead others. So again, this is a very different episode of the Dyson Leadership Podcast. Definitely not the normal by any means, but I want to jump on and give you 2 back-to-back episodes on self-leadership. Think about that. If you're interested in working with me as a leadership coach, maybe one-on-one leadership or communication training, contact me. My socials, my contact info is in the description wherever you are seeing this, listening to this, whatever type of podcast that you prefer. Find the info in the description. I offer a number of services, a number of things, but I live to help people reach their potential. I hope that you'll consider subscribing to the podcast if you're not already. I hope you'll consider leaving us a rating, a review. That helps us get out to more people. If you think this is impactful, you learned something in this episode, share it with a friend, share it with a coworker, share it with your manager, your direct reports, something to help this spread and get out there, because we only get better by learning, developing, growing, and having an element of self-leadership. That helps us get better. And when we get better, we can then serve other people. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Dyson Leadership Podcast. Tune in again next week for another solo episode talking about self-leadership. And in 2 weeks, you should start seeing me have numerous guests back on the podcast like normal. I've got several great episodes lined up, so stay tuned. A lot more things coming from the Dyson Leadership Podcast.